Jones.
Keep doing great work. During my short time in Chicago, I have learned that there are three things that people from Chicago don't play about. The first thing I've discovered is Chicago people do not play about their neighborhood. People will quickly correct you if you say they are from the wrong place when identifying where they grew up. The next thing Chicago people do not play about is whether they are Team Harold's or Team Uncle Remus. Now, I'm not going to start a riot on this morning by asking which one is better, but the last thing that people from Chicago do not play about is the Chicago Bears. And I could get it. I'm from Alabama, Roll Tide. We take football just as seriously, but if I could push everyone on today, I believe the game of football has something to add to our conversation on this morning. As you may know, football is a game played with 11 players on offense and 11 players on defense. That's the rule. But I will argue, and any former football player in the house can attest to this, that many games are not simply won and lost by the talent on the field. The truth is, many games are won and lost by the team's ability to handle the 12th man. Oh yes, the scoreboard may show 11 versus 11, but the truth is, it's never just the players on the field that determine the outcome of the game. You see, the 12th man, it's not something you see in the game day program. You won't find their name listed on the roster. But let me tell you that every player and every coach and every fan in the stadium knows when the 12th man shows up in every game. And if you're not prepared to deal with it, the 12th man can make all the difference. And it can be the difference between walking off the field victorious or walking off in defeat. Who is the 12th man? Oh, I'm glad you asked. The 12th man represents the unseen forces, the pressure, the noise, the atmosphere that surrounds you in the game of life. It's the crowd in the stands cheering, shouting, distracting, and trying to get inside your head. And church, let me tell you on this morning, sometimes the 12th man is the greatest opponent you will face. Oh, don't you know that in the game of football, the noise can be deafening. It can be so overwhelming that it causes confusion on the field. Let me paint the picture. Picture, if you will, the quarterback is out there trying to call a play and he's trying to lead his team, but no one can hear him because the noise is just simply too loud. The linemen, they can't hear the snap count, so they miss their assignments. And the wide receivers can't hear the audible, so they run the wrong routes. And before you know it, the whole team is out of sync, not because they're unskilled, not because they didn't practice, but because the noise of the 12th man was so powerful that it disrupted their focus. And isn't that just like life? We're walking through this journey trying to follow God's playbook, trying to listen to his voice, but there's a 12th man out there trying to make noise. There's a 12th man in the stands of your life trying to distract you, trying to drown out the voice of God. It could be the noise of fear, the noise of doubt, the noise of criticism, and it can get so loud that we can't hear the play God is calling for us. And if we're being honest with ourselves this morning, some of us can admit the noise of life has affected us. Oh yes, we can shout and we can sing and we can put on a brave face, but deep down, some of us know that the noise has gotten to us. Some of us have been in situations where we were just doing just fine and walking with the Lord, hearing his voice clearly, following the play that God has set before us, but then the noise showed up. Oh, you know what noise I'm talking about. The noise of doubt, the noise of anxiety, the noise of fear, the noise of disappointment. And little by little, the noise got louder and louder until we couldn't hear God's voice like we used to. Some of us can admit that we've been affected by the noise of other people's opinions. Can we talk about it on this morning? We were walking in our purpose, moving forward in the direction that God had given us. But then someone came along and said, you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or you'll never make it. And instead of pressing forward in faith, we allowed the noise of negativity to drown out God's voice. Or maybe someone is here saying they've been affected by the noise of comparison. You were content with what God had placed you, but then you looked over and saw what someone else had, and you started comparing your journey to their journey and your blessing to their blessing. And before you knew it, you lost sight of the unique path God had placed you on. Or could it be that some of us have been affected by the noise of failure? You tried something and it didn't work out the way you thought, and now the enemy is in your ear reminding you of every mistake and every shortcoming and every moment when things didn't go according to plan. And someone under the sound of my voice is affected by the noise of busyness. You have allowed the constant demands of the crowd to weigh out the still small voice of God, and you find yourself in the reality of running from task to task and from meeting to meeting and from obligation to obligation, and the noise of your schedule has become so loud that you can't hear God anymore. But I came to tell you something this morning, that the best teams, the champions, they know how to handle the 12th man and the noise of life. They know how to tune out distractions. They know how to focus on the voice of the coach, and even when the noise around them is immense, intense, and insurmountable. And can I push someone's thinking on today and let you know that true success is not just found in your ability to sing the right note, to speak eloquently, or to write powerfully, but I came to tell somebody on this Sunday morning that your success in the game of life, your success on the mission of God is not simply tied to your talent. It's not about how gifted you are or how well you can perform in front of others, because the truth is, my brothers and sisters, you can have all the talent in the world. You can have all the applause. You can have all the accolades on your shelf. But if you can't tune out the noise, the distractions, the temptations, the negativity, you will find yourself drained, depleted, and running on empty. But today I come with good news, because our text shows us through Nehemiah that when you have a great work, you will have great obstacles. And if you're able to tune out the noise, God will give you great success. Matter of fact, that's my sermon in a sentence, that when you have great work from God, you will have great obstacles. But if you're able to have resolve in the face of the noise of life, God will give you great success. As we turn our attention to the text, we find Nehemiah in the game of life with a task that forces him to face a harsh reality. What is this harsh reality? I'm glad you asked. Nehemiah is tasked with rebuilding the wall of Jerusalem. But in order for us to fully understand the weight of Nehemiah's task, we have to go back to the first 5 chapters of Nehemiah. Can I give you the SparkNotes version? Y'all still use SparkNotes? You see, the holy city was in ruins. The once strong walls that encircled the city had been torn down, leaving the people vulnerable, defeated. Can you picture it in your mind? The walls, which once symbolized protection and power, were nothing more than piles of rubble. The gates, which once stood as symbols of strength, were burned down. And the streets, which used to echo with life and joy, now lay lifeless, scattered in debris. The city was simply in shambles. But the horror of his situation wasn't about just the physical destruction of the city. It was much deeper. The ruins of Jerusalem were only a reflection of the spiritual and emotional state of the people. Let me put it to you plain. They were broken. They were defeated. They were without hope. They were without direction, because without the walls, they had no protection. Without the walls, they had no security. Without the walls, they had no future. And it is in the presence of nothingness and destruction that God calls Nehemiah to rise and build. It is in the ashes of once was, where the walls had fallen and hope seemed lost, that God gives Nehemiah vision. My brothers and sisters, I need you to catch this. Sometimes it is in the emptiness and the ruins of what used to be that God gives a great work. For Nehemiah, it was a wall, and it was after hearing the state of Jerusalem, and only after he heard about the broken walls and the burned gates, that his heart was moved to action. And it is upon his heart being moved that he boldly stepped before King Artaxerxes to ask for favor to rebuild the wall, and the king grants him everything he needs to start his journey. But now we arrive at the tension of our focal scripture. We find Nehemiah on a great work. Let the church say, a great work. Nehemiah has made progress. The walls are almost complete. The city is starting to take shape again. But as the work draws to near completion, the noise of life increases. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem won't give up. They can see that their attempts to stop the work in the past haven't worked, so they shift their strategy. On today's story begins with Sanballat and Geshem sending a message to Nehemiah saying, "Come and let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono." But Nehemiah sends a message saying that he is doing a great work. And church, I have to pause parenthetically right there and ask you on this Sunday morning, what is the great work God is calling you to? For some of you, your great work could be raising godly children in a world that's pulling them in every direction. For some of you, your great work is being a witness on your job. Maybe your great work is in the church, serving in ministry, volunteering in Viewpoint or Kids View, or leading a small group, or serving in the choir. And for some of you, you are called to step out on faith, to start a business, to launch a nonprofit, to go back to school, or to pursue a new dream that God has placed on your heart. But the truth is that all of us in this room have been called to a great work. However, it is in the midst of Nehemiah's assertion to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, Nehemiah shows us something that I believe is profound. You see, the walls of Jerusalem aren't finished. The gates haven't been fully restored yet. The work is still in progress, but despite the fact his work is not yet complete, Nehemiah still has the boldness to call it great. And I hope somebody catches this today, that Nehemiah didn't wait until the walls were fully built to recognize the greatness of what God was doing through him. He didn't wait until everything was perfect, until the task was done, before he claimed the greatness of his work. He called it great while it was still being built. And here is the principle that I believe is powerful. Nehemiah shows us that a God work is a great work. Let me break this down. He understands that because God has given him the assignment, it is a work that is great. He doesn't need to seek validation from others, nor does he get caught up in trying to compare his work with the work of others. He knows the significance of what he's been called to, and it's not because of the size or its visibility, but it's because of the one who has assigned it. And there's somebody in the sanctuary on this Young Adult Takeover Sunday who needs to grab hold of this truth, because life has made you feel like the work you're doing doesn't matter. The enemy has been whispering in your ear, telling you because the work isn't finished, because you haven't seen the fruit yet, because you're still in the process, that it doesn't matter. But I came to tell you that the devil is a liar. Just because the work isn't complete doesn't mean it isn't insignificant. And just because you're still building, still pressing, still waiting for the full vision to come to pass, doesn't mean it's great. And that's what you need to declare over your life today that you're doing a great work. There may be the noise of doubts and distractions and even discouragement, but don't let that noise turn you down from the truth, because the truth is you may not be finished yet, but you're doing a great work. You may not see the breakthrough yet, but you're doing a great work. Even if the storm may be raging in your life, but I came to tell you that you're still doing a great work, because if God has called you to the work, it's a great work. But not only does Nehemiah have a great work, church, but God allows Nehemiah to have great obstacles. Let the church say great obstacles. You see, when you're called to do something significant, you can expect significant opposition. God gave Nehemiah the task of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, but along with the great work, God allowed him to face some great challenges. Nehemiah didn't just have to deal with the weight of his work. He had to deal with noise from Sanballat, noise from Tobiah, noise from Geshem. And here's the problem. Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem weren't just any old people. They were men of power and influence. They were leaders, men with resources, and they had their own agenda. And let me tell you something, that when you're doing a great work for God, you're not going to be opposed by just anybody. The bigger the calling, the bigger the opposition. And the reality is life is that at some point on the mission of God, you're going to have to deal with your own Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. First, in verse 2, we meet Sanballat and Geshem. Sanballat and Geshem use what I call the noise of negotiation. If you're taking notes, be so kind to write down the noise of negotiation. The noise of negotiation shows up right when you've got momentum, right when you're focused, right when you're on the wall doing God's work. The noise of negotiation comes in with something that seems innocent, but is designed to pull you away from your purpose. And it is in Nehemiah 6:2, Sanballat and Geshem sends a message to Nehemiah, said, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. It's a oh no to go to oh no. But make no mistake that Sanballat and Geshem wasn't inviting Nehemiah for a friendly conversation. They weren't trying to help Nehemiah out. They were scheming and plotting and trying to pull Nehemiah off the wall. And let me tell you something about the noise of negotiation when it shows up in your life. It's the new opportunity that's not really in line with what God's will, and it looks good on the surface. It shows up as that relationship that feels promising, but it's pulling you away from your faith. It's the constant interruptions that take away your focus from the great work that God has placed in front of you. And the harsh reality is sometimes we let Sanballat and Geshems of our life feed us the noise of negotiation because the distractions offer a temporary escape from hard work. Because the truth of the matter is the work that God has called you to isn't easy. Building walls isn't easy. Walking in your purpose isn't easy. Being on the mission of God isn't easy. And so when Sanballat and Geshem come knocking with something that looks more comfortable and more appealing, sometimes we let him in. But here's the danger of Sanballat and Geshem and the noise of negotiation is that it may start small and harmless and temporary, but temporary distractions over time can cause a permanent detour if you're not prayerful. And when you're on the mission of God, you cannot afford to compromise any. But not only does Nehemiah have to deal with Sanballat and Geshem and the noise of negotiation, Nehemiah has to deal with Sanballat and Geshem and the noise of false narratives. In Nehemiah 6:6, Geshem and Sanballat accused Nehemiah of trying to make himself king. They spread lies saying that Nehemiah is building the wall as a part of rebellion against the Persian Empire. And it is here we find the noise of false narratives in our lives. The noise of false narratives come from people who question your motives, who try to twist your actions and make them look like you're doing something that you're not. The noise of false narratives will have people saying, oh, he and she is doing that just for attention, or he and she is serving just because he or she wants to be seen. And how many of you know that when you're doing a great work, people will start questioning your integrity? They'll start questioning why you're doing it. They'll start questioning what you're doing. But here's the thing. When Geshem and Sanballat come into your life with false accusation, you don't have to step down to their level. You just have to keep working and keep pressing forward and let God take care of the rest. And let me take my time right there, because Geshem and Sanballat know that if they can get Nehemiah to react, they can limit his progress. And if they can get Nehemiah to step out of the person God called him to be, they've already won. And church, when you get out of character, the enemy wins. When you start to fight his level, you lose momentum on the mission of God. When you lower yourself to respond to gossip, to defend yourself against lies, you've already started losing ground. So can I give you your mood for the rest of 2024? Every rumor is not worth a response. When you're on the mission of God, you got to learn to stand and let the Lord fight your battles, because haters are going to hate. People are going to people. Friends can get fickle. Family can get fake. But here is one thing that I know, is that God will be faithful. And you don't have to hang your hat on people, but you got to hang your hat on God just being God. Please be seated. Please be seated. You're pushing me. You're pushing me. But not only does Nehemiah have to deal with Sanballat and Geshem using the noise of negotiation, and not only does Nehemiah have to deal with Sanballat and Geshem using the noise of false narratives, but Nehemiah has to deal with Tobiah and Sanballat using the noise of fear. In Nehemiah 6:9, we find they were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands would get too weak for the work and it would not be completed. Tobiah and Sanballat wasn't just whispering lies. They were sending threats, trying to make Nehemiah and his people so afraid that they would lose their strength and give up on the work. And this is how the noise of fear shows up in your life. It's in the places in your life that tell you you can't do this. You're not strong enough. You're going to fail. And the noise of fear is that voice saying in your head, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You're not capable of doing what's needed to finish the task. And here is the dangerous part. Fear can feel like wisdom if we're not careful. Because we have allowed the insecurities of our heart to cloud our judgment. Because the crazy reality is the noise of fear will make you think you're being cautious, but really you're being a coward. The noise of fear will have you saying things like, maybe I should wait, or maybe this is just not the right time for me, or maybe I'm not ready. And before you know it, what started as being cautious turns into being cowardice, and you have stopped being on the mission of God. But my Bible is true, and it tells me that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love and sound mind. And I don't care what your mind tells you. I don't care what doubts may creep in. I don't care what insecurities start whispering in your ear. And I don't care how people try to make you feel like you're crazy and like you lost your mind and like you're out of place. If God has given you a word, that's all you need. And my brothers and sisters, that's something we all must take hold of, because if God has spoken over your life, if God has made you a promise in your heart, if God has given you an assignment, the word is more powerful than any doubt or any fear or any voice that rises up against you. And if God settles it, that settles it. You don't need anybody else's approval. You don't need validation from the world. You don't need a crowd to agree with you, because all you need is a word from God. But not only does God give Nehemiah a great work, and not only does God give Nehemiah a great obstacle, but also he gives Nehemiah a great resolve. Let the church say a great resolve. Let's look at verse 9 together. The Bible says, but I prayed, now strengthen my hands. Notice what Nehemiah didn't do. He didn't deny that the enemy was making noise. Let's be clear, he didn't act like opposition wasn't real. He wasn't naive to the fact that his enemies were plotting or planning or trying to stop him. Nehemiah acknowledged the threat. He knew that the enemy was out there. He heard the noise. He saw the danger. But here's the key. He didn't let the threat stop him. And let me help someone's faith real quick and tell you that just because you acknowledge the opposition doesn't mean you're giving the enemy any power. It's okay to admit when life is hard. It's okay to admit when you've got some challenges and some sufferings and some hang-ups and some heart rates, because faith isn't about denying reality. It's about trusting God in the midst of your reality. And that, church, is what it means to have a great resolve, because Nehemiah wasn't superhuman. He wasn't immune to fear or fatigue, but he had a great resolve because he knew where his strength came from. He didn't rely on his own power. He cried out to God. He knew that when the battle got hard and when the opposition got fierce and when his hands got tired from building, he could cry out and say, Lord, strengthen my hands. And somebody here today, you need that kind of resolve, because maybe you're building something and it feels like it's falling apart, or maybe you're trying to repair a relationship and raise your kids or keep your business afloat, or maybe you're trying to live for God and the enemy is attacking you from every side. But like Nehemiah, you could just stand firm and say, Lord, strengthen my hands. And the truth is, because Nehemiah had a mission, so do we. And just like Nehemiah, God did not bring you this far to leave you. The enemy may be loud, but God is greater. The enemy may be real, but God is stronger. And what you need to do is not come down, but to lift up your voice and simply say, Lord, strengthen my hands. And when God strengthens your hands, you can keep building. You can keep pressing. You can keep pushing forward no matter what comes your way. You won't give it to fear. You won't give it to discouragement. You won't let the noise discourage you. You won't be rattled by the enemy, because you got great resolve. And with the Lord strengthening your hands, you become unstoppable. But not only does God give Nehemiah a great work, and not only does God give Nehemiah great obstacles, and not only does God give Nehemiah a great resolve, lastly, God gives Nehemiah great success. Let the church say great success. In verse 15, we discover that the wall has been completed in just 52 days. Now, I don't know about you, but 52 days to rebuild the walls of an entire city is nothing short of a miracle. That was the mission. And Nehemiah and the people of God accomplished it. They stayed on the wall, they worked through opposition, and they did not let fear or distraction stop them. Yes, that was good success. The job was finished, but can I push your thinking on today? What if I told you that Nehemiah experienced a twofold success? Good success is in completing the job, but great success is when people can see the God in what you do. Good success is when the wall goes up, but great success is when the wall around you recognizes that it wasn't just your hands, but it was the hands of God. If you don't believe me, it's in the text. And when we look at verse 16, church, it simply says, and when all of our enemies heard it, and all the nations around us were afraid and failed greatly in their own self-esteem, for they perished that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. Now that's where gracious success comes in. The wall was built, yes, but when the enemy saw it, they weren't just impressed by the construction. No. They didn't just say, wow, that's a good wall. They recognized that God was in the midst of it. The nations around them fell back, and it was because the wall was tall. It wasn't because the wall was tall or strong. It was because they knew that the work had been accomplished by the Almighty God. And can I tell you that great success isn't just finishing the work. It's when people around you see that God is behind the work. Because if God can help Nehemiah rebuild the wall in 52 days, he can handle your problems. And if God could give Nehemiah the strength to stand against his enemies. He could give you the strength to stand against yours. And if God could help Nehemiah keep working with a weapon in one hand and a tool in another, he could give you the strength to build and fight at the same time. And if God could make Nehemiah's enemies see his power, he can make the enemies in your life see he has his hands on you. And if God could take Nehemiah's enemies and make them lose their confidence, he can silence the voices that are trying to tear you down. And all that I'm trying to say in my little message is that great success means that God is in it. And you may have asked, how do I know that God's been in your life? The only reason you're still standing is because God was in it. The only reason you didn't lose your mind is because God was in it. And the only reason you didn't throw in the towel was because God was in it. And your shout on this morning is not only the fact that God was in it, but your shout on this morning is that if he was in it back then, he'll be in it right now. If he brought you over back then, he'll bring you over right now. If he healed you back then, he can heal you right now. If he made a way back then, he can make a way right now. If he delivered you back then, he can deliver you right now. So can you do a country boy one favor? Can you shake your neighbor's hand like you're gonna shake it off and say, oh neighbor, I don't know what your great work is, but just make sure that God is in it. Because if God is in it, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. If God is in it, you will finish your great work. And if God be for you, who can be against you? And if God is fighting for you, the battle's already won. If God is on your side, every enemy has to flee. If God is for you, then victory is yours. So Broadview, keep building. Young adults, keep fighting. Broadview, keep standing, because God is in it. But since God is in it, you will not fail. So when the enemy tries to knock you down, keep building, because God is in it. When the strength is fading and you feel like you don't see the way out, just remember that God is in it. When the odds are stacked against you, you don't see the way out, keep standing, because God is in it. So don't stop now, don't quit now, don't throw in the towel, because God is in it, and he's about to do a new thing in your life. What is he about to do? What eyes have not seen, and what ears have not heard. I said what eyes have not seen, and what ears have not heard. But he's only gonna do it if you don't come down. He'll restore your family if you don't come down. He'll bless your business if you don't come down. He'll get you through school if you don't come down. He'll restore your joy if you don't come down. He'll make a way out of no way if you don't come down. He'll turn it around if you don't come down. And your testimony on this morning is yes, he will. 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 How do I know? I tried him and I know that yes, he will. 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 And your testimony, and all I got to tell you is be not dismayed. Whatever be your time, because God will take care of you under his wings. Love abides. God will take care of you. So throw your hands up, throw your head back, and say, I can't come down. I can't come down, because the work is too important. So Broadview, don't come down. don't come down. They could cheat you, but don't come down. And I can tell you my testimony that I've had some good days and I've had some bad days. I've had some weary days. I've had some sleepless nights. But the only reason I'm still standing is because I didn't come down. And Broadview, if you're just like me, get courageous on this morning. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, I won't come down. I won't come down. Step out in the aisle and tell 3 people that I won't come down. The work's too good and I can't come down. I said the work's too good and I can't come down. So can you do me one favor? And if you know that God will sustain you, open up your mouth and say, yes, I won't come down. Yes, I can't come down. Yes, I won't come down. And can I give you your testimony? And it's only 6 words. It's won't he, will he, can he? Won't God do it? Yes, he will. Can God do it? Yes, he will. Won't God do it? Yes, he will. And I believe the answer is yes.